Welcome back to Science Fiction and Fantasy Readalong. I am ATN.
This is DM Phil.
And I'm Yule.
We'd like to thank everyone who subscribed or commented on the recent episodes. We love what we're doing, and it's really great to hear from y'all. I'd also like to especially thank Andrew Murphy for finding yet more evidence that Opon has been manipulating the game from way back. Good catch, Andrew. Now.
And today we're going to be discussing Chapter 6 of Gardens of the Moon by Steven Erikson. Once again, we're in the jeweled city, Darujistan, with not a bridge burner in sight. In our last episode, we did some really shoddy dream interpretation, and we met a motley band of Daru citizens that has the feel of an RPG adventure group. Would you guys agree with that?
I have no idea what you're talking about.
Okay, good. In this episode, the second half of the same night plays out, and we meet one of fantasy fiction's greatest heroes. This chapter is broken down into 8 sections. We're going to discuss each in turn, and then we'll close the episode with a general discussion that's really pretty unstructured. Would you guys like to add anything before we begin?
No, I think we should just get right on into this book, into this chapter.
Excellent.
Yeah.
So before the chapter, once again, we have a little fragment.
Let's call it poetry.
No, it's literally called a fragment. See, it's Cabal, fragment.
Yeah, I comprehend. But it's essentially,
I don't think you do.
It's prose.
I don't think you do.
It's epic prose.
Is there really anything we can pull out of there that we haven't already pulled out? I mean, I think we understand that there's a cabal in Darujistan. If you don't know what a cabal is, it's a secret organization that runs things.
Seems like there's more than one, right?
I mean, there's definitely one that we're talking about for the sake of the book.
Well, there's a legitimate council, but there's several secret power brokers that apparently control or influence things in the city.
In the service of the Lord of Moon's spawn, the greatest of the great ravens departs for Darujistan.
Big birds.
They're big. They're just massive birds, 15-foot wingspan or something. They're bigger than albatross. They're massive.
We saw them come out of Moonspawn, I'm sorry. What was it? They attacked?
They got disrupted because Tayshrin was attacking Moonspawn.
Oh, that's what it was.
They had to leave their perches and their nests because he was destroying their home.
And that's how you saw how big they were.
And then, of course, they feasted. Nevertheless, we have one in particular.
Crone, and it's a she.
Well, nevertheless, this bird is on a mission. Did you pick up anything notable about Moonspawn by any chance?
Well, it was still burning and smoking.
Yeah.
They mentioned that. So it's only been like a day, 2 days, 5 days since.
Pale was 2 days before yesterday. This is the second half of Chapter 5, essentially. The second half of the night that Chapter 5 took place on. And that was 2 days ago, Pale fell.
Oh, that's right, because Crocus, when he was on top of the roofs, could see, he thought at first it was clouds, but what it really was smoke from Pale.
Which is like 860 miles away as a reminder.
I think this is a little bit important because let's talk about great ravens in general. First of all, they can speak, but
that's pretty important.
Yeah, they actually have a language.
It's English, funnily enough.
Yeah, they speak pretty darn good English. It also talks about they absorb magic. I don't know if they live off of it.
Yeah, I wasn't under the impression that they live off of it, but it definitely elongates their lives.
But they said it was ambrosia.
Yeah, ambrosia. And
it said bathing in their aura, it said their lifespans lengthen into centuries.
And millennia.
Yeah, millennia. And I don't know if it's a spoiler, but yeah, she said Crone has looked down over 100.
Ah, that is a spoiler. Come on.
Well, are we talking about her or not? That's
we're
fine.
We're talking about Crone, but we're talking about what's in this section in Crone, right? Let's not jump ahead.
All right. They can live for a long time.
They can see magical emanations, and that's kind of all it says right here.
It says something else about magic, though. It has another effect as well, but it's not clear what that is.
Oh, yes, right. They're vague about it.
I had a feeling it was sexual. I don't know why, but like that's where my mind went. That like maybe the birds like to get it on when they're in, surrounded by magic.
I would
too. Holy smokes, are you kidding me? So we're learning a little bit about the ravens. We're learning a bit about this particular raven. She's on a mission. What's her mission? Do we know?
Specifically, Rake gave her a very detailed description over what she was looking for, an estate with certain magical emanations. She's trying to find it. That's all you know at this point. But the other point is, how did Rake know how to describe this estate so perfectly?
That is a good question. And we're going to leave it unanswered for now.
Because we don't have an answer.
We don't have an answer at this moment. We also do learn where Moonspawn is presently.
It's still over the lake, isn't it?
It's south of the lake, south of Darujistan. If you check the map, the big map of the world, the dwelling plain is to the south and the west of the lake and Darujistan. Let's see if we've got anything else. Yes. We did learn a couple things about Darujistan as well, notably that among all of the estates in the highest part of the city, which is the eastern side on the 4th tier, some of those estates are protected by magic, not all. And of those that are protected by magic, Crone is heading for one. She's identified the one that she was instructed to identify, and it is literally inundated with magical auras. I think the actual wording was a profusion of protective sorceries. So it stands out even among those houses or estates protected by sorcery.
So I have the impression that there's several wizards here, but only a wizard would protect his house, right?
I would say that rich people that could afford to engage a wizard to protect their homes might do so as well.
You would think so, but
I would think so.
well, who knows?
Midnight in the highest tier of Darujistan. 2 councilmen meet clandestinely. It's about somebody else.
Person named Baruk.
No.
This is
Oh,
about
I'm sorry, we're not there yet. I'm sorry, Circle Breaker. You're right. Well, he did his job. I forgot.
What chapter did you read?
Stop it.
Now, there's a guy. He's a city guard. Let's figure out where we are, right? We're in the top highest tier. It's called the estate district. And this is where all the rich people live. This is where the council members meet on a regular basis. There's a spot up there called the Despot's Barbican. And it essentially is this massive gate that is left over from the old castle back when Darujistan was ruled by kings. And it's all that's left of the castle that used to be up on that hill. And that's got to be pretty old. I don't know, centuries or something. But there is a guard who has been posted to midnight watch duty in that park, because it's now a park, at midnight for the last 6 years. So tell me, what is the Despot's Barbican to you? Like, when you read this section, what did you take away as far as what its meaning is to this guard?
There is a promise of it coming back to life. I don't know what it means.
I read that too. I didn't get it. It was like the last sentence of this section. It said, "One nightmare at a time," he often told himself, particularly on nights like these, when Despot's Barbican seemed to breathe its promise of resurrection with mocking certainty.
It sounds like major damage has been done to people before in this area.
Actually, what I think it really means is what Circle Breaker really fears is a tyranny.
I see.
I don't know why they keep the Barbican, but maybe it's just got this symbolic gesture of times gone past when they were ruled by tyrants. And so what he fears is
the return of tyranny.
Yeah, the return of tyranny. Good.
And this to him is a focus. It's a reminder, ever present. He has spent time walking around this thing. He knows all the cracks and the crevices, and he knows that even though it looks dilapidated, it is not. It doesn't have a personality or a will of its own, but he uses it as a focus to remind himself that they're living in kind of a golden age of freedom, and that can end at any time. And he has set his life to be the enemy of those who would see a return to tyranny.
Agreed. But the important thing is he chose this spot. Somehow he chose, or it was
been posted here for 6 years.
Yeah, but I think he wanted to be posted.
Where do you get this information?
I don't know. Did you read the chapter?
Yeah, no, I did. And I didn't see anything about him selecting this place as his, I wanted to be posted here.
Who wants midnight duty for 6 years?
Dude, I think you're reading things into
No,
this
I'm not.
That are not
why
there.
Is he here?
Because he was posted there to do his midnight guard duty.
Well, he could have any assignment he wants.
Where do you get that?
He wants this assignment.
Dude.
Are you kidding me?
Yeah, I'm not. I think you're a loon.
I was under the impression that he was here to spy on the people he's here to spy on. And by being in this situation on this post, then he was doing his best job. Now, maybe, just maybe, the guy he's working for, and I say guy loosely, maybe that person is taking advantage of his post. Or maybe he got that post knowing that it would help his guy. So I don't know. I could see either way. But nonetheless, that's what the situation is right now.
Circle Breaker is posted here, has been for the last 6 years. Whether he chose it or not is not clear. It's not stated explicitly in there, is it? Doesn't matter, really. But I do think that's a stretch to say he wants to be there. He's using his information. There's no question about it. He's a spy. He's got his duty. He's not alone, though. He's not the only person up there. This is the middle of the night, and there's a councilman hanging out under the lintel of this massive old gate with him, completely ignoring him, pretending he's not there.
As he has done many a time.
And he's waiting for somebody, but so is Circle Breaker. Circle Breaker's also waiting to be relieved. That's it. By the time, the other councilman shows up, Circle Breaker makes a mental note, has a really good memory, puts all that stuff away where it belongs. And those councilmen kind of like clasp arms and go off on a little walk through the park. And before they return, he has been relieved and he takes off to go deliver a message. And yes, he's afraid of a civil war. He thinks that Darujistan is falling into a civil war. And he's like, that's even before the Malazans get here. And they're only a few hundred miles away.
What evidence is there that a civil war is coming?
I don't know, but that's what he fears. Like, we know that this guy, the councilman's name is Turbinor, right? And we know that he is meeting in secret with some other councilman, pretty unreasonable time of the night in order to be doing legitimate business. I mean, they do meet up here. This is very close to where the council meets. But to meet at midnight in a garden, seems like it might be a little bit underhanded, possibly. Did you guys me personally, I immediately hated Turbinor. Immediately.
Well, yeah, anybody that would pass by the same person night after night, probably for years, and not pay attention to who that person is. Maybe like, hey, Jim, how's it going? I don't know your name. I don't even care. I'm above you.
Yeah, he's got this air of superiority where he doesn't even see those people.
I mean, what I'm really getting at is I think Erikson very, very effectively, his job in this case is to make us like or dislike characters so that he can put them in conflict with each other and etc. And also he has to justify Circle Breaker's behavior. Circle Breaker is a spy. We're not raised to like spies, are we? We're raised to think spies are either James Bond good guys or they're bad guys, right? But we like Circle Breaker right away, and we dislike Turbinor right away. I think he did a pretty good job there. I really don't like Turbinor, and he doesn't give us a lot of information. He paces, he's impatient, he doesn't look the guy in the eye, he doesn't acknowledge his existence, and that's all he really does, and I hate him. So my hat's off to Erikson for that. So did you find it, Philip? Because I know you were looking.
I was looking, and I know I'm right.
I'm guessing you didn't find anything then, did you? High Alchemist Baruk receives the first of 3 visitors on a very busy night.
Like the ghost of Christmas future and all that stuff?
He is a busy man this night, that's for sure. All right, so we've discussed one of Erikson's modes before, the way that he links paragraphs and sections together. For example, in the previous section, Circle Breaker was relieved and he went off to deliver a message. The very beginning of the next section starts in a new place. We're in the estate of Baruk, the High Alchemist, and he's reading the message that was left in the murder hole of his postern gate by Circle Breaker. What does it say?
It says who Turbinor was meeting that night.
Who was
that
it?
Morning. It was Councilman Fader.
And that's pretty much all it says, right?
Yeah.
No, there's very something important there. It says, I remain known only as Circle Breaker, so he names himself a servant of the eel.
Oh.
Yeah, this is like, I think the first time we really get the eel's name, right?
Yeah, it is, yes.
Yeah, but there's no indication whatsoever of what the eel is. Yeah, I don't know. First time it's mentioned.
The eel. Okay, so what does that make you feel?
Clearly one of the secret power brokers that I mentioned earlier.
Also, the eel, that kind of is yucky.
Well, what is an eel? What's an eel?
The big, long, slimy worm in the ocean.
It's slippery.
It's disgusting.
Hard to hold.
All eels are disgusting. I had to dissect one in biology class.
We're not talking about that now. Okay, so we've just been introduced to the existence of this character named the eel, who is the handler at very least of Circle Breaker.
Right.
And Baruk is the person to whom the message was delivered. Now, why did Baruk get the message?
So that they might be able to work together.
Their interests coincide.
Yeah, that's what it was. Yeah, exactly.
Okay, but who's Baruk essentially?
He's the High Alchemist. What are you talking about?
Well,
why is he the guy getting the message?
He's another power broker in the city.
I don't know if you understand what the word cabal means.
It's a group of individuals.
Yes. Yes, it's a group.
But we're going to find out later who he's in the group with. Well, Baruk is the High Alchemist, and he obviously is a person that people respect enough to have a conversation with.
Yeah, but Circle Breaker's giving him this message because he's more than just important. This man is a protector of the city. It's stated explicitly in this section that he said it's getting harder for him to step out to protect the city unknown. So Circle Breaker apparently has been delivering messages via that murder hole for about a year. Baruk's word for the information he was getting was that it was vital. He'd been getting vital information from the eel via Circle Breaker. And he could very easily figure out who Circle Breaker was, but he doesn't do it. That's the first thing that he does that tells me that I like this guy. He respects Circle Breaker's privacy and identity enough not to go prying, even though he could very easily do so. He says so right away. The eel, on the other hand, he could not figure out. Nobody has been able to figure out who the eel is. So the eel is definitely a power player in Darujistan. That's undeniable.
And not part of the cabal that Baruk is a part of. As far
That
as we know.
apparently Baruk is the head of.
He heard a tapping, wrapped up tapping at his window door. Well, that would make no sense. His window.
What is that in reference to, Philip?
I saw several connections to Edgar Allan Poe's The Raven in this section here. And who comes tapping at the window? Crone, the great Raven. And that's just the beginning. That's what made me think about it. And then I went and reread this, and I reread The Raven. And there were several things in there that really stood out in my mind. And I probably don't want to bore you with them.
No, I want to be bored with them.
Okay.
But I think we should talk about Crone now and like
Yes.
what goes on. And then at the end of the section, let's talk about The Raven and
Yeah,
how
sure.
it's
So
combined.
save that thought because I put it together and I
Thank you for doing that.
think it fits.
So yes, Baruk is this kind of heavy set dude that's sitting in his plush chair. He's had dinner. It's late at night. And they're tapping at his window. The shutters are on the inside and they're closed, but he sees there's a bulky shape on the windowsill. And he's like, how the hell did something get through my magical wards?
Something did get past the magical words, and it burst through the window.
You brought something up earlier about how effective this bird's words are, because we remember the bird can speak.
Mm-hmm.
She just busts through the window, like completely rude, right? Like,
Right.
Bang, I just broke through all your words. Bang, I just broke the glass of your window.
Mhm.
And Baruk is like up, and he's got his hands up, and he's ready to blast this bird with some kind of powerful magic. And the bird's like,
Don't bother.
and he doesn't.
Do you have anything to eat?
And he's like, I have told my guards not to bother you. I have brought food. And she's like, yeah, you should probably get something to drink. And he's like, I should probably get something to drink. Did you guys notice that?
Yes.
It's very suggestive of her having really powerful domination.
Well, I think it's just power persuasion, or I don't know if it's the way she can speak that is influential, or she literally has magical power in this regard.
Is it possible that he is so confident in his abilities that he's not really worried with this bird, that he sees the bird, he recognizes that it's not a demon, right?
Yeah.
So is it possible that he's just that confident?
No, I think she leaves him a little rattled. Well, he definitely was surprised, right?
Yeah, he stood up real quick.
And he could clearly see what it was.
Yes.
You got me there. I think both could be true. Maybe both. He's obviously very confident in his power, but also I think he's very controlled in his power. Given that millisecond of effort on Crone's part to say, don't bother, put him at ease.
Don't waste your breath, is what she said.
Well, and she also said that she has something of value to him.
Right away, she didn't.
Yeah. Well, yeah, for the most part. I bring words you will value. Have you anything to eat?
What do you think, Yul?
I don't know. I mean, you would get up if glass was flung at you.
But everything she said, he agreed with.
More than agreed with. He did.
He complied, yeah.
He brought her food. He did not cast a spell at her. He did go get a drink.
I didn't think about it that way.
Nevertheless, I think it's unresolvable. It brings to question whether or not she's just ridiculously powerful and he fell under her spell. I don't know, though. It's just something worth mentioning.
Well, I think Baruk is also very confident with his abilities.
I can totally see that. And we get a lot of evidence to support his reason, why he would be so confident, but we'll get there.
Well, this is where we get to the part I mentioned earlier where Crone and Baruk are kind of debating a little bit about human ethics. And she said she's looked down upon 100,000 years of human folly.
That is an
Yeah.
incredible lifespan. Isn't Anomander Rake that old as well?
Yeah, something like that.
Okay, so Crone, what is she doing there?
She's bringing a message. The Lord of Moonspawn wants to meet with Baruk.
Yeah.
Well, this is an important part, and I'm not sure if it's just protocol, propriety, etiquette, call it what you want, but Crone came first
Announced him.
and announced him. That's true. That might be etiquette and propriety, but it might also be that Crone is the only one who could get through all those wards. Baruk said after that, I'll make a way for him.
Uh-huh.
I'll leave a gate open for him. So it might be that Crone is the only one that could get through here.
I will grant you that is certainly a reasonable assumption. Nevertheless, I feel like Anomander well, you know what? I have no reason to suspect so as well. It's very possible that you're right.
Whoa.
We don't know yet, do we?
Just that you said Phil was right.
Philip, do I admit when I'm wrong?
That's not the point.
Only when you're convinced you are.
Thank you. That's exactly correct. All right. So Crone is here to announce the imminent
Yeah, within an hour. Yeah.
of Anomander Rake, who is okay. Anyway,
It's
So-
super dude.
yeah, we're not talking
Well,
about
actually-
Anomander Rake right now.
Actually, the really cool thing here is it says, hey, can my master come? And he says, yes. And then there's a knock on the door.
Yes.
And it was like, oh my God, instantaneous. Yeah, okay, but it's not Anomander Rake.
No, it's
No,
not. Who is it?
It's Rolled the Servant.
Who is announcing yet another guest? Crone offers her services to Baruk here.
Yeah, and I see I'm putting it all together. So she's offering her services, but really she just wants to know what's going on. I don't think she's helping Baruk. I mean, maybe that's part of it also. I think she's there because she wants to see, and she's implying again, I want to be here. And she's doing it in a very subtle way.
She told Baruk earlier on in this section that she is more than a simple messenger. She is valued by those who understand wisdom when they hear it.
Yeah.
So she's already put the worm in his ear that she is wise counsel. At the end, when a councilman has arrived on his doorstep, Crone offers her counsel to him, and Baruk accepts.
When we find out that there is somebody coming to visit Baruk, Crone gives a little bit of a reading, if you will, on who's at the door. Your guest is mundane, a restless personage whose thoughts are thick with greed and treachery. A demon crouches on his shoulder named Ambition. And one thing I wanted to ask you guys is Crone. She obviously has magic and bathes in it and all that other stuff. Been around a long time, has seen a lot of human folly. Is she divinating what is going to happen, like who this person is, or is it just wisdom with what she's speaking, especially at this one point?
I don't think it could be wisdom because she has ESP if it's just wisdom. So we're already getting into a completely different batch of talents. How is she supposed to know who's at the door?
Well, she either sees things before they happen,
Right.
and I think she does on some level, or she just senses life and can read minds.
I think she's more than wise, Yule. I think this bird is spectacularly talented. You know, immediately she knew the important features of the creature at the door better than a palm reader.
Yeah.
So I think she's quite spectacular.
Well, it might not also be coincidence that she's here at this time. Maybe she chose this time specifically because she knew Turbinora was going to come, hence the premonition. All right, whatever. But the point is, she, on some level, not only knew who this man was, but also knew his soul.
Yeah, I think that's very clear. She can see inside quite well.
Well, that probably goes for Baruk, too,
Oh, yeah, I agree.
which is why she said, why don't you go get a drink? Calm yourself. And he's like, yes, a drink will be good.
Right. It may have something to do with why Anomander chose this man as well. Does she provide Anomander with counsel?
Yes.
Seems reasonable if she's that gifted. Why don't we try to figure out really quickly what Crone is actually capable of? Since you brought it up, Yule, let's do that.
Okay.
I'll start. Yes. The first thing that this bird does in this section
Fly.
is
Very
blast
good.
through all those magical wards
Yeah.
without setting off any alarms. Whoop, right through, no problem, as though they were not there.
Well, she can also see magical emanations and know what they are.
That's true. That's true. So she can see magic. She can detect magic.
And then at the end of this part of the chapter, she has mind control, but she doesn't transform her body into a dog, correct?
Read that section so that it just explains itself.
I am no more than a pet dog. To the councilman's eyes, that is, my words a beast's whimper to his ears.
Okay, so it's illusion. Do we have anything else that the bird is capable of
Not right now.
besides speech and intellect and those abilities?
Longevity.
Okay, so let's leave it there, but we're going to be coming back because this bird's not done, right? So tell me about The Raven by Edgar Allan Poe, please.
Oh, all right, good spot. So the original work by Edgar Allan Poe called The Raven was actually a short series about a man who had lost his wife, Lenore, and he gets visited by a raven who doesn't speak much, but he goes on and on and on and on and on about it. The reason I think that this short section in Stephen Erikson's book is kind of an homage towards The Raven is because of the similarities with Edgar Allan Poe's work. And it starts at the very beginning. He says, over a quaint and curious volume of forgotten lore. Well, Baruk was sitting there reading a note in his plush chair when the Raven showed up. And
when there came a tapping at my chamber door.
Yeah. So it wasn't the door.
No, it was the window, but whatever.
Well, he went to the door and there was nothing there. And then he came back, he sat down again. And then there was a tapping at his window. And he opened up the window and a raven came in. So they just skipped the part with the door. But the fact that the raven came in the window is a little bit telling. And then it says, and in stepped a stately raven of the saintly days of yore. And it said, not the least obeisance does it give me. And with mien of lord and lady perched above my chamber door. That is just like Crone. Arrogant, full of herself, stately.
Proud.
Very, very, very proud. Then he went on to say, ghastly, grim, and ancient raven. And raven is capitalized here. And Crone is ancient, after all. And it said, not long after that, prophet, said I, a thing of evil, prophet still, if bird or devil. And that's when Crone came in and he said, oh, well, clearly you're no demon, you're a bird. And at the end, we get to that, unfortunately, that Crone gives him a prophecy. But it did say somewhere in this book that Baruk, despite himself, couldn't help smiling and liking this bird. And it pretty much said the same thing in Edgar Allan Poe's prose. It said, but the raven still beguiling my sad fancy into smiling. It said beguiling as in bewitching. Anyway, either way, I saw some similarities here. I think it was really cool. Like, I actually figured something out, I think.
I think you did too. I do. Thank you for putting that together. Yule, do you have anything to add about Crone or the Raven?
Pass. No, I'm sorry. No, I like Raven, or I like Raven. I like the Raven also. Crone is a cool character.
I loved Crone. She makes me happy. And when Crone offered her services to Baruk, I was super pleased because
she was just about to leave.
More than that, like to me, yeah, she was about to leave, but we've got Crone, whom I already really, really like, and we've got Baruk, whom I already really, really like, and they're going in cahoots to talk about Turban Orr and see what he wants, whom I already can't stand. So they're like ganging up on this guy, and I just feel good about the end of that section. I was happy when she offered her services, and he was like, yes, please, I would love your counsel. I was like, thank you. That's great. Good news. Now, before we move on to the next section, I want to point something out to you guys on page 150. Baruk kind of lets in on something that he might fear. He says that a gathering of ascendant powers is a fell thing. So he's aware that there have been ascendants gathering about and possibly in Darujhistan. Do you guys know what the hell he's talking about?
No.
Well, you mean other than Opon?
Yeah.
For sure.
Yeah, sure. Opon is there. We know that, but he's aware of it.
And then not only that, but Opon's only involved because other ones are involved. And maybe that's how it plays out. I'm not sure.
That may be so. And we know even before this moment, that Opon has done things in the city. He can sense that, I guess, when it happens. But he said a gathering of ascendants. And as far as I know, there's only one ascendant that's done anything there, and that's Opon.
Do you think he could be referring to the Tistiandi?
That crossed my mind, but I don't consider them ascendants.
I wouldn't have either. At the same time, I'm kind of at a loss here. I just don't want to throw that sentence away because I think it's important. I know that it has bearing on some pages that are coming up. So I wanted to mention it and see if you guys had any thoughts about that. I'm really kind of at a loss.
I read it and moved on, but I didn't know what he really meant, other than it's It goes back to the thing they said in the very first chapter in the prologue, where they basically said power attracts power and try to go unnoticed and all that other kind of good stuff.
The Ascendants do have a tendency to like kind of glom together and then make a big mess. An assassin lies in wait for his lady. So we've got this guy. This guy's name is Ralik Nom, and he has been for the past 5 days hidden on top of the wall of the Simtal estate, or at least he's been coming here for 5 days and observing the lady of the manor, Lady Simtal.
She's had a bunch of lovers over the course of that time.
She's had as many lovers in as many days. So that's one every night.
Is that really the wording?
Yes.
I knew it was numerous, and I also know that 2 of them are councilmen.
Yeah, this one right now is a councilman.
Yeah, Councilman Lim.
He's like on a balcony or something.
They're smoking after having been together.
That's yes, and they continue. Yeah, they're continuing a conversation that started inside.
And it's about the alchemist.
It
Baruk.
does seem to be about Baruk. Yeah.
And it is a typical Erikson. The first thing that's mentioned is why the alchemist?
Sure.
Not giving us any of the other part of the conversation that preceded it.
Right, but very handily linking it to the previous section in our minds.
Sure thing.
So why the alchemist? What are they talking about?
Well, at first, Lady Simtal is saying how he's just this fat, smelly guy that isn't even part of the council. So she just sees that he's a doddering old fool.
That's what she thinks. That's what Lim thinks that he wants everybody to think.
Your Councilman Lim doesn't go for it. He's like, your naivety is a charm, my dear. He obviously knows that the alchemist is something more. It doesn't specify, but he clearly believes that.
He has
Yeah, it
suspicion.
sounds... All right, so he says we have sources among the majory.
Well, he says they have suspicions only, correct?
Yeah.
So what we really know is that they suspect Baruk is somehow influential.
Right. The wizards fear him.
And the public opinion is that of Lady Simtal, that it's just a doddering old fool with no political connections. But people who know better have suspicions.
Right.
Well, it does say that a good many of the wizards in the city fear the alchemist, and they name him by a title. That alone suggests a secret cabal of some sort. He said a gathering of sorcerers, lady, is a fell thing.
Well, isn't that an interesting turn of phrase?
Considering a gathering of ascendants is a fell thing?
Yeah, let's talk about that right now, okay? To me, what that says is there is a hierarchy in play here. We have ascendants at the very top who fear nobody because they're always confident and cocky and all that nonsense. Below them, we've got wizards who fear a gathering of ascendants. Below them are the politicians. The politicians fear the wizards.
Well, the politicians fear losing their power.
Well, yes, but they don't actually have any, right? Theirs is completely manufactured, whereas a wizard's is real. Nevertheless, that hierarchy exists, but who really runs this town?
The assassins.
We can debate politics shortly.
Yeah, because this part here really still gets me.
What part?
She says that he has council ties,
It's a question, right?
and Lim says if he has, the evidence is buried deep. And if he hasn't, then that might change this very night. So what is this evidence that they're talking about?
There isn't any. That's why he said it's buried deep. They don't know. They don't see any connections. But this part about this very night, that's another thing that Erikson is doing, just like the fell gathering or whatnot.
Mm-hmm.
It's another turn of phrase that we're going to see again.
That's right. Wow. Okay, that's an epiphany because...
Just look for these things because he does it all the time.
Yes.
He does it all the time.
Yep.
And he's very particular about his words. I'll point out another one in a little while, but we got to wait for the next section with Baruk. Okay, Ralik Nam is observing this conversation. He's overhearing this conversation. In the meantime, he's just casually pulling out a poisoned crossbow bolt and sticking it in his crossbow, cocking it, and he's getting ready to take a pot shot.
Right. But he's also gone into some detail about how, like, he's going to get revenge to specify.
Yes.
It's like, this is not a guild killing. He's doing it for a friend of his.
Does it say that?
Yeah.
It does.
Does it?
I don't say he says a friend.
He doesn't say a friend.
The crime
Fine, what
she
does he say?
committed had not been against Ralik, but unlike her victim, Ralik had no pride to halt vengeance. And I wrote freebie right next to it.
Yeah, we can assume that it's a friend.
I would assume.
Why would you do this for anybody but a friend, right?
Right.
Right. So yeah, the victim is his friend or something, and he's getting vengeance
In this person,
because he doesn't have the nuts to do it or something.
Oh, he's bound by pride.
Well, it says pride. So for whatever reason.
We'll get there. We'll get there pretty soon too. All right, so he's just about to pull the trigger. High Alchemist Baruk receives the second of 3 visitors before the first has even departed. All right, so we got this councilman who we've already met and I already can't stand. Knock, knock, knocking at his chamber door, and in he comes. He's been brought in or whatever, and he's like, "Oh, what a magnificent dog you have there before the fire."
Just to remind people, that's Crone.
Yeah, looks like a dog, sounds like a dog, not a dog. All right, so Councilman Turbinor has decided he's going to show up in the middle of the night. Why? Why is he here in the middle of the night?
He wants to have a conversation with Baruk, obviously.
He said, "I apologize for disturbing you so late at night." And he said, "It's said that alchemy flowers best in deep darkness." And I think he's fishing right there. I think he's fishing. I think he already suspects that Baruk is the leader of the secret cabal, and he is an alchemist. They call him the High Alchemist.
That's his title.
Yes, that's his title.
I don't think that's the title that Lim was referring to.
Oh, okay. Well, that may be true. Oh, maybe they're going for the eel. Do they think maybe he's the eel?
They might. Yeah, that's a possibility. Nobody knows who the eel is.
Okay, doesn't really matter. The point is, I think he's fishing for. I think he already suspects Baruk is this, secret power broker, and he's fishing.
Is it a case of a person that is guilty thinking that someone else is also?
Yeah, very likely. Yes. I think that's a fair assessment of this situation.
And we know Turbinor goes around.
Well, we know he's a schemer.
Yeah.
Right? What did Crone say about him?
He wears
got ambition.
Ambition is the demon that rides him, but he's got greed and something else, right? He's a schmuck. This guy's a prick. He's not a likable guy. All right, so what does he say to Baruk? What does he really want? I agree with you that he might be fishing here, but what does he want? What does he tell Baruk?
Well, the reason I say that is because then Crone chips in and says, "Careful, now this man hunts in earnest."
Yeah, but what did he say?
He wanted to let Baruk know that the council was going to be voting on the fact that they have an ordinance ready to go saying that they're not going to cause any waves when the Malazans come to town.
A proclamation of neutrality. They're voting on it in 2 days. And he wants Baruk to influence other sorcerers to support it, even though they don't vote, right?
Right.
He says it'll go a long way to helping them and their cause. That's what he says he wants. And that is when Crone says, "Be careful, this man is hunting in earnest," indicating that that's not all he's really here for. He's trying to learn information. He is trying to weasel something out of Baruk.
It almost doesn't make any sense whatsoever that he came here super late at night just to tell him that there's going to be a proclamation of neutrality. He could have done that tomorrow. The Malazans aren't going to get here tomorrow. They just took over Pale.
I think he wants the wizards to be kept in line also. Because these are the guys that cause problems for the Malazans, obviously.
Well, I think he wants to see which way the wind's blowing in that direction, right?
Mhm.
But still, there was no urgency to come so late at night just to tell him about the proclamation and
Well, he's doing more than telling him. He's asking for his support.
well, that's true, but he could have done it at a reasonable time.
That's fair.
Right? It's just odd that he comes really late at night. Maybe he knows his habits. Maybe he's under surveillance. Apparently, he works late into the night. That's where he's most productive.
Okay, but Baruk he's not going for it. He does not think that the proclamation of neutrality is worth its weight in salt. He says that there is no purpose to it. And Turban Orr asks him if he wants to die like the Wizards of Pale, to which Baruk responds, how?
And he says, assassinated by an Empire claw. He said Moonspawn was entirely on its own against the Empire.
That's Turban Orr.
Yeah, I'm sorry. Yes, that's Turban Orr. Turban Orr is thinking that all of the Wizards of Pale were assassinated by the Claw, and Baruk says, your information contradicts mine.
And then he regrets saying that.
He regrets it because it
means he slipped up.
Yes.
He revealed more information than he wanted to.
Because he found that information out somehow, right?
Yeah. How did he get it? Well,
I don't want to get there yet. But the point is, he has sources and he knows things that other people don't know. And that's when Crone chips in. He's like, careful, you're both wrong.
So wait, Crone's saying that the wizards weren't killed by the claw.
I mean, you can infer that. She doesn't specify how
Right.
they're both wrong,
But-
just that they're both wrong.
I see.
But Baruk doesn't say what he thinks or knows, but Crone knows, right?
Yeah.
That's evidence that she knows.
Baruk feels that this proclamation of neutrality is just the first step towards total annexation, and this really pisses off Orr. He starts to get hot, and he starts to get mouthy and disrespectful. He's already made one threat, which was the claw are coming. Don't you want to support us? The claw are coming. And then
They
when
don't like
Baruk is like,
wizards.
nah, dude, I don't buy that. He's like, oh, well, then we're going to take any consideration of the majory out of the proclamation because we haven't finished writing it yet, which is a way of essentially saying that the wizards will be on their own when the Malazans show up. Don't expect any support. But Baruk's not having any of that either.
No, that's when Crone trips in, prod him, and see what more comes forth.
What more comes forth?
Well, he suggests that they might not win the vote.
Yes, and that has the desired effect. It makes Orr even more angry, and he blurts out that we're going to win by one vote. We got it tonight.
He's like, for sure.
Yeah.
100%.
Yeah. We just got the winning vote.
We got it no matter what.
Yeah,
It's
he's
gonna
gloating,
happen.
essentially.
Yeah.
He's in the very beginning, when he first sat down, he said that there are people who do not support the proclamation of neutrality. Pride has gotten in the way and has made them unreasonable and belligerent. And here he is. His pride has just gotten in the way, and he has become unreasonable and belligerent.
A little prophetic.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, it's like when you casting the first stone and, the pot calling the kettle black and all of those things. But here he is giving away that piece of information, which Crone knew he was going to give away. That's her wisdom coming into play, right?
Yeah, but he says, by my count, we've reached a majority this very night, Alchemist.
This very night. Interesting.
Mm-hmm.
Interesting wording.
And then Crone stretched out on the rug on this night of all nights to tempt myriad fates with such words. And she heard a spinning coin.
A distant spinning coin. And then there's also the bloom of power that makes her shiver, which is why I think that it might have something to do with sexuality, right? Anyway. Okay, so that is tempting fate because, nobody goes around saying, I guarantee this is going to happen, and then doesn't kind of worry about it failing. You know what I mean? And here's this. What a jerk. So we are back on top of the wall of Lady Simtal's garden with Ralik Nom. Our assassin has a change of perspective, but fires nonetheless. He's been lying there. He's got this poison bolt. He's cocked. He's loaded. He's ready to go. And then all of a sudden his head is full of words and whispers, and he's confused and
He's spinning.
It says a whirring, spinning sound fills his head, whispering words. We all know what that is.
well, his plan crumbles to ash, and in its place, something more elaborate forms. And that thing that's more elaborate that just formed convinces him to swerve just 1 inch to one side and pull the trigger. Bam. Instead of taking out Lady Simtal, he takes out Councilman Lim. Now, I ask you, who was convinced to vote their way for the proclamation tonight?
Lim was.
I assume it was Lim, and it was Lady Simtal that did the trick.
Councilman Orr met that guy at the Barbican, or convinced Lim to change his vote.
Or, no.
Feder.
He met Feder.
And probably Feder then talked to somebody who talked to somebody.
Oh, you're
Notice
right.
that Nom did not say who the other councilman was. I'm suspicious that it's actually Orr. And Orr has been using her to manipulate other council members to vote his way. So he's using her sexuality to convince Lim to vote their way, and Lim just got nailed. Bam, dead.
Hope it was good.
It's a guess. Sex can be a weapon. Why not? By the way, Nom, he stashes that crossbow in the cornice, drops off the wall, and just casually walks away. But what is going to precipitate from these events? Throw me your guesses.
A vote ain't going to go the way somebody wants it to.
Probably
It's going to
true.
be a tie, right?
Yeah. And who knows what happens then, but it doesn't matter. But what else is going to happen? Because this was all part of Ralik's new plan, right? Which obviously is not his
Well,
plan.
they're going to find a dead councilman in her chambers, and she tends to be with a lot of men, and they're all going to find out about it.
Oh, I think it's heavier than that.
Well, I'm just saying that whoever they are,
dude, trust me.
they're going to find out about.
This chick is hot and she's willing. No other men are going to be like, well, no, I can't have anything to do with her now. They're all going to be like, hey, there's a spot in her calendar that's open.
Either way, it undermines her
Is that a
image.
euphemism?
Councilman Lim's wife is specifically mentioned as being somebody who's going to make Lady Simtal's life miserable.
Well, who knows? Point is, something's going down.
Opon has a plan.
Opon has a plan. The widow will find out that her husband was killed in this woman's bedchambers. And I'm sure those chips are still falling.
Assassinated, no less. But this is not the end of this section, because Ralik Nam, he took off, but he doesn't make it to the Phoenix Inn, which is his destination, right away.
And who else went to the Phoenix?
Crocus.
This very night.
At the end of last chapter, Crocus barely made it to the Phoenix Inn.
He was running for his life from the Tisty Andy.
How's your night?
Normal. Now, Nam just did whatever he was doing tonight, and now he's casually going to what, the Dead Phoenix or something?
The Phoenix Inn. Well, he gets a little bit waylaid, essentially, by his clan leader, Ocelot. Pulls him into an alley. Hey, I'm here. Let's talk. Ocelot's this pockmarked guy who's like real cagey and nervous, and he informs Ralik Nam that because he wasn't working for the guild this night, he might have saved his own life. His vendetta might have been beneficial for him, because they've been losing roamers, I believe they're called. They've lost 5 roamers and a clan leader in one evening. And they mentioned the guy's name, the assassin that was killed in the last chapter.
Talo Crafar. Yeah, he's a giant.
Bull of a man.
This is like just a kind of a reveal to let us know what they know and kind of push this section, this Assassin's War thing forward. Vorkin is aware. We know now that Vorkin is a woman as well. I don't know if we knew that already. They know that it's not internal. They know that this is somebody from outside the city, and they all suspect that it's the Claw. But you and we already know better.
Yeah, but also, this guy Ocelot says, hey, I didn't have to come tell you. It's like, I just did you a favor.
Yeah, favor.
Now I got something for you.
And Ralik's like, a favor? He's like, yeah, right. And he's like, no, now you owe me. Well, he didn't say that, but...
Now you're going to be bait, though, because they're setting a trap.
Yeah, and he's the bait. He said, now you're going to do something for the guild. You don't find out what it is. But then he goes into the chicken. I mean...
The Phoenix.
The Phoenix.
Into the chicken. Interesting. Okay, High Alchemist Baruk receives his 3rd visitor.
Anomander Rake.
All right, so Baruk is, I guess, I don't remember exactly how it's revealed, but Baruk felt the bloom of power that Crone had felt at the end of their last section. It gives him a headache or something. He noticed it anyhow. Crone is about to go and bust through the window again, and Baruk's like, please allow me, and he magics the windows open so she won't break them again. This is after he's repaired it, by the way. He mended the window. Crone jumps up on the windowsill and then delivers a prophecy. It kind of rattles Baruk. What's the prophecy?
I see 12 ships riding a deep harbor. 11 stand tall in flames. And then Baruk asks, and the 12th? On the wind, a hailstorm of sparks filled the night sky. I see them spinning about the last vessel, still spinning. And then she flew.
I wonder if that's a slight reference to Opon, the spinning.
That's what I was wondering too.
How do you interpret that?
The fate of Darujistan is still up in the air.
That's how I interpreted it as well.
Anytime that same word, if there's some metallic spinning of a coin or just something spinning, it's like maybe Opon, depending on how it lands, is going to affect Darujistan's final outcome.
We've talked about this in past episodes. I just have this strange feeling. I don't know why I'm convinced of it, but I am convinced that Opon is chance. It's randomness. Like, it's up in the air. It hasn't been decided yet. Nobody knows. It's not set in stone. If Or were to be believed, it's already decided. Right? That's what he wants Baruk to think. But it's not so. It's still possible that Darujistan will not fall to the Malazans. All right, so Baruk, he walks over to his map table, and he looks down at the once free cities, of which there are 11, matching the prophecy and the ships and the deep harbor. And there's only one that does not have the burgundy and gray flag on it, and that's Darujistan. I would like to know if either one of you noticed what color cloak did Turban Or wear?
I didn't.
Burgundy.
Oh, was it really?
Yep.
So that was an indication that if Turban Orr got his way, this would be another Malazan city.
I mean, it's not just a color. Obviously, it's it's a region in France, and it's a type of wine that comes from that region, and it is a very particular color. But why not a crimson or maroon or any of these other colors? Like, he wears a burgundy cloak. It's very particular. Erikson did that on purpose. So yes, I think it is an indication that if he had his way, he's going to sell his city to the Malazans in order to profit greatly, I'm sure. Right? He's colluding for a reason. There's something to be gained here.
That's probably part of it, but I also think he doesn't believe he can beat the Malazans.
He certainly can't. The wizards might be able to. All right, let's move on though. So Crone delivered her prophecy and departed. And almost immediately, there's this beautiful description of like significant gravity pressing down on the house. The walls are creaking and cracking, and there's a great weight on Baruk's shoulders.
And his head. Yeah, and it's like going crazy, yeah.
The lights in his chambers wink and go out, and then the weight is relieved, the creaking stops, and there's a voice behind him. You can call me Anomander.
He did have a high-pitched voice, right?
I don't know. I can't imagine what he really sounds like.
I don't believe so.
Anomander Rake is standing in darkness behind Baruk, and we had a little argument the last time we talked about this section. Let's go right back to that argument. This room is dark. And he says, you don't mind the darkness, do you? I'm more comfortable in the dark.
Right.
So if you were just visited by this guy who you've heard of, he's a legend, right? And he just showed up in your house via teleportation or something.
Which caused great pain to you also.
Would you then just go ahead and turn on the lights?
No.
Okay. So what does Baruk do? Because he didn't turn on any lights.
He makes the map glow.
That is not how I interpreted that.
Yeah, I agree. We had this argument when we did our preamble. No, he mutters a spell, and the details of the map on the table took on distinction, emanating a cool blue glow. But he said he faced the Lord and was startled to discover that the tall cloaked figure reflected as little heat as the room's inanimate objects. So it's not glowing. He's seeing infravision.
Yule believes that the map is glowing, and then that is what's giving off the light.
Well, that's what I thought the first time I read it, but I think Etienne's right.
I just feel that, like, in a gaming sense, when you use infravision, you see the map, but you don't see specifics. And this is giving you specifics.
Is that true?
Just the heat.
I understand, but this isn't D&D.
If he's seeing an infrared, then, like Yule said, he wouldn't see the details on the map.
I mean, I don't know that he does.
It says that he does. It says he clearly saw the details. And then he was surprised to see that Anomander Rake's temperature was the same as inanimate objects.
Maybe it's not infravision. So he can see Anomander Rake clear as a bell. He can see all the details of this guy, even though he's not radiating any heat. Let's get a good description of Anomander Rake.
At this part, we're talking about his eyes. Such remarkable eyes, Baruk thought. One moment, a deep hue of amber, cat-like and unnerving. The next, gray and banded like a snake's. A fell rainbow of colors to match any mood. He wondered if they were capable of lying. Anomander Rake's skin was jet black. His mane flowed silver. He was close to 7 feet tall. His features were sharp as if cut from onyx. A slight upward tilt to the large vertical pupilled eyes. And now the sword. The sword is a two-handed sword that is strapped to Anomander Rake's back. Its silver dragon skull pommel and archaic cross hilt jutting from a wooden scabbard fully 6.5 feet long. From the weapon bled power, staining the air like black ink in a pool of water. Baruk is like staring at it, and he has a moment where he feels a vast darkness yawning before him. Cold as the heart of a glacier, from which came the stench of antiquity and a faint groaning sound.
Ugh, that's horrible.
So it's a magic sword?
Well, that whole thing about the ink.
I like that.
I do too. I can picture that very clearly in my mind, and I find it very disturbing. Like, if I saw something like that, I mean, it pulls straight out of my mind, like scenes from Japanese horror films, just really, really creepy. And the fact that it makes noise, and then if you stare at it too long, you start to fall into a well of darkness that stinks of antiquity. I mean, the whole thing is just terrifying.
Well, Anomander Rake knew exactly what was going on. He said Baruk wrenched his eyes from the weapon, looked up to find Rake studying him from over one shoulder, right? So his back was to him. clearly showing him the sword. And
He's pouring wine for them, right?
yeah, but he knew exactly what was happening. And he said the Tistiandi quirked a knowing smile because he knew what Baruk had just experienced. Then he handed Baruk one of the wine goblets and he said, "Was Crone her usual melodramatic self?"
Yes, she was.
He's like, "Yeah, she's never been modest in displaying her talents." And yeah, I guess Crone is a little arrogant.
Let's not call it arrogant. Let's call it proud. Well, how did Poe describe the Raven?
Proud and stately.
Yeah, a mien of nobility, right?
Right.
And knowledgeable. Very, very
Snooty
knowledgeable.
and confident in her power.
Yeah. Superior even.
For sure.
Yeah, I love her. I love that bird. All right. Baruk has had 3 visitors on this night. This is the 3rd. They've all wanted something. What does this one want?
Well, he said he wanted wine.
Which he got. So what does he want?
He wants to explain himself.
No, he wants an alliance. Before this, Crone had said that Anomander Rake wants peace. But Anomander Rake, when speaking for himself, says he wants an alliance. And then Baruk is like, "Oh, yeah, the Wizards of Pale had an alliance with you." So Anomander Rake goes through and he gives his side of the story. Why don't you tell me what actually happened from Anomander's perspective?
Well, he starts off by saying she threw everything she had at me. And by she, I mean the Empress of the Malazans, right?
Yes, it's made very clear in just a second.
And I was trying to figure out what the eye colors were meaning. And it said the Tistiandi's eyes shone like glacial ice. And I interpreted that to mean anger. Then Rake said, and even then she couldn't bring me down. And then I didn't say his eyes changed, but that's pride.
Well, he's cool, right?
Yeah.
Let's go there because he gets mad in a minute and his eyes turn black. What happened in Pale? She threw everything she had at him and couldn't take him out.
They were being attacked by Tayshrin. And he even talks about how Tayshrin set up all these wards on this hill and then brought up these demons from underneath the ground, basically.
To attack his own people.
Yeah. Anomander Rake, rather than let all these demons come up and destroy everybody willy-nilly, he started taking care of them also.
Baruk said, I know something of Tayshrin's powers, and he's no match for you, so what happened? And that's when he said, I've committed all my sorcerers and warlocks to the war effort in the north. I didn't have anybody in my city but like old people and children.
And that's a revelation to Baruk, the fact that it's a city. And that should give us some idea of scale, too.
Yes.
He said there's children and what?
Priest and 3 elderly, exceedingly bookish warlocks.
Right. So he pulled his city out of there before it could be destroyed. Because, like Yule had said, Anomander Rake was not expecting an attack, and then he went about spending vital energies destroying the demons that Tayshrin had summoned. So we now know, confirmation, at least from Anomander Rake, that Tattersail was correct, that Tayshrin summoned those demons. Belurden was wrong. Anomander Rake is like, I was perplexed. I don't know why he did that thing that he did, but he did it, and I stopped it. And then I had to get out of there because my city was about to be destroyed.
I know, but Baruk cast a really sharp stone. He said, when the battle had begun in earnest, your first thought was not for the alliance you made with the city, but for the well-being of your moon. He's like, who told you this? Rake demanded. And he's like, some of the wizards managed to escape. He said, they're in the city?
What color are his eyes then?
Black.
Yeah, he's pissed.
He said, why? He's like, I want their heads.
With good cause, because if the Wizards of Pale had not fled, they would have been able to repel the Malazan army. That is Anomander Rake's assessment.
Well, he also said that yeah, the Claw were in the city, but none of them made it more than 10 feet past the walls.
Yeah, he himself destroyed them. Do we remember that Talk the Younger's Claw leader was garroted in Pale? Do you remember that?
Yeah, I do.
This might be the guy that did it. So why wouldn't he do it with his sword?
Well, it might have been some of the other Tistiandi too. Who knows?
What other Tistiandi? I thought they were all committed.
Obviously, it has some, but they may not be wizards.
They're running around here.
Well, yeah, exactly. They're running around here. They may be the Tistiandi version of assassins. I don't know.
I don't either.
But either way, Anomander Rake says whatever you got was wrong, and we would have won the battle if those wizards had stuck by their post, but they fled, and they're all going to die.
And yes, as a result, he's gone out. He sent the moon drifting south, and then he went looking for those wizards, and he's found all but 2 of them, and they're now in the city.
And he wants their heads.
He wants their heads.
They can be alive, though. He'd like that, actually.
He would. So let's talk about that. This is really a conversation about that sword again.
Yeah.
Because Baruk is like, well, okay, so they're here in the city, and yeah, I can get them for you, but what are you going to do with them if you get them? And he's like, well, I'm going to kill them. He's like, with that sword? And he's like, yeah.
Of course.
Yeah, naturally. And he's like, oh, well, you're going to get their heads then.
Yeah, Baruk had to recoil. He's like, oh.
Without telling us anything specific, Erikson has given us a very clear idea that dying by that sword is a fate worse than death. What has he told us about that sword?
Nothing.
He's told us that it smokes. You know, it's got like inky smoke coming off of it, and that if you stare at it, it kind of mesmerizes, it makes noises, but we've never seen it be used. We have no idea what that sword does, but we know firmly that it's a fate worse than death.
And that 5 of those wizards were taken out by it.
I applaud him. He satisfied that handily. You know what I mean? I really, really like that description.
Yeah, but also Rake laughed when Baruk said you'll have their heads. And he said, there's too much mercy in your heart, alchemist.
All right, so what does Baruk think about Anomander Rake and Anomander Rake's power? We kind of skipped over that part. It's not really pertinent to the story that we just relayed. But like, how does he judge Anomander Rake?
He said basically power changes you. The amount of power that Anomander Rake has, and that he's been able to, that has absolute control over it. He said, well, that's just inhuman.
Yeah. Instead of the power molding the man has molded his power. He's in complete control. And I think that's why Baruk was willing to deal with this guy. Ultimately, we already mentioned this before, but Crone said, my lord is possessed of honor and courtesy. So she's not wrong, is she? He asked permission to visit, which was granted, and he arrived. And he's been polite. He explained himself in the situation. And Baruk's already wondered, can this guy even lie? And so we know he's already kind of inclined to trust this guy, even though he's never met a Tisti Andy. He's received several revelations in the encounter. One, that any information he's getting about Tisti Andy, he's read Gothos Folly and how that Jagged tyrant was very happy that there weren't very many of these guys around. This guy was around then. Think about that.
Well, also, he expects the Wizards of Pale to keep up their word, and when they don't, he hunts them all down and kills them. I think that's...
His city was almost destroyed because they fled.
Yes.
He did not get any help from the wizard. He made a bargain with them. He did his part. They did not.
They broke their promise.
And the city fell because of it. It's only right that they die. I I kind of agree. Well, Baruk agrees to speak with the Cabal. They'll give their word or their answer shortly, and they will deliver the heads of the 2 wizards. As dawn approaches, a lone occupied table of card players wait out the night in the Phoenix Inn. This is the only location we've been to today in this chapter that was not in the Estate District. This is in the Daru District, just below that. And this inn is kind of a nondescript inn, and it's empty. There's no occupied tables except for the one, and it's got Crocus, Murillo, and Krupp.
Yeah, but now it's morning. The light is coming in through the window.
Dawn is arriving, yes.
And Cole
is asleep, snoring, lying in a puddle of beer. And they're playing cards.
And Krupp's talking.
Nonstop.
Yeah, and he won't play his card.
Talking. He won't play his card, yeah.
I mean, I laughed out loud twice during this section.
It's a good character scene.
It is, and that's exactly what it is. It's a character development scene. We don't really learn a lot. I don't know that we learn anything really new, do we?
What we learn is that Crocus is back from his adventure, and a lot of this is from his point of view. And he is still trying to get everybody to talk about this war that's going on that is killing people. And Krupp and Murillo are like, all right, settle down, boy. None of that's really
it doesn't sound true, right?
So again, we're getting it from Crocus's point of view, and a lot of this is like, oh man, I can't believe this stuff's going on, but look at these guys, they're all my friends.
Yeah, that's true. And he describes them, I think he does pretty well. I thought this was weirdly done for Erikson, because he's like, Cole, Krupp, Murillo, and Rallick. What a strange group. A drunkard, an obese mage of dubious abilities, a dandified fop, and a killer. Still, they were my best friends. I don't know why. I like that. He calls them out. He describes them. He's very succinct, and that's very un-Erikson.
Doesn't that sound like an adventuring party to you?
Yes, it does. Exactly.
It does. We also get Crocus's history and about how his parents died early on in his life, and he was raised by his uncle. And even though his uncle is a scholarly guy,
He did what he could.
Crocus still was able to fall into a bad crowd.
So the crowd this is the crowd that he fell in with. And we find out that he had apprenticed as a thief with Krupp.
Right.
The wizard of dubious ability.
And Cole, also we find out that Cole was already upset by the time Crocus showed up.
Oh, right. Okay.
So that's another thing. So he's been a drunk lying in his beer for a long time.
Yeah, Crocus doesn't know why.
Yeah, but he said it's hilarious. It's like Cole's life seemed to involve the relentless avoidance of sobriety.
Right. And then he also was somebody at one time.
He was something more than he is now. And we find out that Murillo and Rallick have been kind of colluding and keeping it secret, even from Krupp, who normally is the ringleader. And they're not talking to Crocus. He's not cut in on whatever's going on, and he wants to know what it is, but they won't tell him.
While he's thinking about his friends, Crocus thoughts come into his mind. Came an image, the moonlit limbs of a sleeping maiden. And do you remember in the last chapter when we were talking about it, how when he saw her in her bedchamber, I can't remember the name of the daughter.
D'Arl is the last name?
Yeah, that's right. You know, when he was in her room stealing her stuff, he was clear-headed, he was focused, he was in control, but now that he's gone and out of danger, he's back to being a 17-year-old boy thinking about naked girls.
Yeah. Are you now thinking about naked young ladies? Is that what's going on?
No, I'm just saying that's what young 17-year-old boys usually think about. And now that the job's over, he's going back to...
But he puts it right out of his mind. Does he not?
He tries.
He immediately.
Well, he does.
He moves on immediately.
Yeah.
He forces it out of his mind. He doesn't want to think about that. He has other things that are more concerning, like this assassin war that's going on the roofs, which Krupp denies, which Rallick, even though he knows better, also denies. Rumors. This town was built on rumors, is what he says. But Krupp won't play his cards. They're trying to play a card game. It's Krupp's turn, and Krupp's like, "Oh, is it my turn?" So good. And they're like, "Just play a card."
Yeah, eventually they just give up and give him his money and leave.
Murillo realizes, like, I'm a mess. My beautiful shirt's it's stained. My pants are stained and creased. I need a bath and I need to get changed.
He orders breakfast for everybody and then takes off. Rallick comes downstairs from sleeping. He looks well rested. And then eventually Crocus also throws in his hand, and Krupp's like, "Undefeated! I'm undefeated!" He's so happy. This was the thing that got me super, super happy the other night when I was reading this and taking notes. Think closely about what Krupp is doing. There's a common term associated with what Krupp is doing.
Parking on the grass.
Annoying his friends.
He's playing the long game. He refuses to lose, and he's manipulating the game so that he doesn't lose.
Wow, I get it. Yeah,
Yes.
You're right.
Yeah, so I told you that sometimes when I find things, I get really excited.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's an example. When you say things out loud, when you try to describe a thing that you've just encountered or witnessed, sometimes you put it into words, and you're like, "Oh, that makes sense if you put it that way."
He's literally playing the long game, and that's
What did Crocus say about him? He said that this mask of idiocy has never dropped. In all the years that he's known Krupp has never let that mask down, even though Crocus knows it's a mask. It's an affectation, but it's never been dropped. So I don't know what he's playing at, but he won that game. You know, he took their money. He's undefeated. He's Krupp. He makes me laugh. I really dig this guy. When he gets served last by the barmaid at the very end.
Salty.
"I should cast spells on Salty." And Rallick's like, "You better not." He's like, I wouldn't.
He calls her a scullion, and she hits him upside the head with the bread.
Piece of toast on the head. It's very funny. Okay, so that winds down the chapter, I think, quite succinctly. I don't think we didn't veer off too far, did we?
I don't think so.
First of all, do you guys like the chapter? Did you feel it was?
Oh, yeah.
I loved this chapter. I giggled.
Well,
I was excited.
Well, yeah, absolutely. But here's the thing. He jumps back and forth between two storylines that they come together at the exact same moment. When we're giving our description, we're bouncing back and forth between these scenes. But really, when you're actually reading it, I mean, you're seeing two things happening simultaneously. So it may not sound that exciting from our descriptions, but like when you actually read it, it's so much more exciting because you're bouncing back and forth. And like, no, I don't want to bounce. Oh, yeah, that's good too.
It was really exciting. I greatly enjoyed this chapter. Well, he leaves you on little cliffhangers too, like Ralik Nam. He's taking aim and he doesn't shoot. And then you're off on something else. You're like, oh my god, who's he gonna? Why is he gonna shoot that hot chick? Oh my god.
Yeah, I was so sure he was gonna shoot the hot chick.
You don't shoot hot chicks. I mean, Jesus, what are you thinking? No, he goes for the councilman instead. And that's appropriate. He killed a politician, obviously. What about you, Yule? What do you think?
It was great. It had characterization. It had plot development. You finally get to really, really meet Anomander Rake,
Yes.
which is is that one of the greatest characters in fiction? Is that who you're talking about?
I said fantasy fiction, but yes,
fantasy.
I think he is. I mean,
Yeah.
he's a spectacular hero.
He ain't no Silch's ruin. That's 5 minutes
not
later.
in this book. Okay, so we spent the first book of this novel, which is the first 4 chapters. We spent that book with the bridge burners. We got to like them. We got to see how they were being mistreated and abused, and they were stoic about it, and they took their lumps and they kept on ticking like a Timex. And we liked those guys, right?
Yeah. Well,
these are their enemies.
But we also get hold on. We also get Tattersail over there.
He's essentially Malazan. So I mean,
we got Ganos,
bridge burner.
Let's not forget this whole book is really.
The point is like the good guys, bad guys. They're not black and white. I mean, the truth is, these are mortals with good qualities and bad qualities, and in an entire city, you're gonna have good people, bad people, and everything else. And yeah, that's actually a really good point. It's very easy, in my opinion. It's a little bit easier to write a book where you clearly have like those guys over there. They're the bad guys, and they're always bad.
Yeah, and it's unsatisfying.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, we almost really should think that anybody going up against the Malazans are the good guys.
Well,
because like we're watching Darth Vader spread his power.
The Empress.
And even though we like individual people, and they were still conquesting on the conquering the whole land under the other emperor before.
Yeah.
Yes, he was. Yes, yeah, they were growing the empire. I understand.
Hands down, the Malazan agenda is not one of like goodness, spreading candy and treats and happiness.
No empire spreads candy.
No,
they just don't do it. But we don't like the Empress because there are people that we do like that she has been cruel to. But I mean, that's just the way. It's like when I said earlier that I really did not like Turban Orr, there were qualities about that man that I do not like, that most people don't like. His impatience, his meanness, all these things. But he exists in order to exist in opposition and counterpoint to Baruk, at least in this chapter, whom immediately we do like, because he's protecting the city and he's not asking for fame or fortune for it. He's doing it out of the goodness of his own heart, right? That's the first thing we find out about the guy. He's the High Alchemist and he's protecting the city. So we've got the Empress, who is this wicked woman who attained her position through treachery and murder, and her army. And then we've got Anomander Rake over here on this side, who's trying to stop her by committing his troops up in the north with Caladan Brood, and they're winning, by the way. But we have opposing sides here, and I don't know who to root for, because traditionally there is somebody to root for. And in this novel, there just isn't. I want the Bridge Burners to win, and I want Anomander Rake to win. I love everybody that we've been following.
And our cabal over in
Baruk. And who knows?
Baruk.
Who knows who works with Baruk?
He's a good guy.
A very good guy, right?
Crocus is cool. Krup's funny.
Oh, is it my turn? I wrote lol in my book because I literally laughed out loud the first time he did that. I mean, I've read the book before.
He gets better with more readings.
He's
does.
Great.
At first, he's just very long-winded, and you're like, what's going on here?
His dream was not funny.
Yeah, for the most part,
and you didn't know who he was, but no, it was not funny.
And now that we're getting to know him,
It is funny.
well, he's funny, certainly.
Well, okay, let's put it in perspective. So the dream was just not a very pleasant experience for Krupp, but I think there were funny components there because his whining, and it was entertaining. It was not funny. But now that he's in a recreational moment, he's funny.
And he's a thief, and he's a mage. He made claims. Oh, his claim, that's what made me laugh out loud, actually, was when he claimed, because Rallick Nom is not there to contradict his story.
Yeah, he saved his
like,
life.
when I saved Rallick Nom's life, Rallick Nom is this gifted assassin. He's like, when I saved Rallick Nom's life, there were 6 thugs beating him up. He was almost dead. And so I just blasted him with, and there's a description that Erikson gives where he's pointing at Crocus and waggling his fingers at him, and I can picture it in my head, and it's beautiful. It's so very good. Krupp is amazing. But I have to admit, I was thrilled at how quickly and how effectively I despised Turban Ore, and how quickly I loved Crone and Anomander's sword. There are so many things in this chapter that just made me happy. And this is not a happy series in general. There's a lot of bad things that happen. But this chapter was particularly... It was icing. It was beautiful. I loved it. I loved it a lot.
Even in the bar, when it's in the morning and they've been playing a game all night long and there's still one of the guys passed out. I don't know why, but that reminds me of my time in college when we used to get around and play dominoes and drink beer until somebody passed out, and then we went home. But many a good memory playing dominoes until the sun came up. And I like that scene so much because it reminded me of that.
To me, this is their RPG gaming group. This is written from experience, right?
Sure.
This is not him just making stuff up. I don't know. What do you think, Yul?
I think I can't wait to finish up this book.
Okay, so we're going to wind it up. Is that what we're saying?
Yeah, I don't have anything else to say. I mean, it was a great episode, I think. Great chapter, at least.
All right, thank you for joining us for this episode of Science Fiction and Fantasy Read Along. We have an email address that'll be in the description of the YouTube video. If you want to get a hold of us and can't otherwise leave comments, the email address for those of you listening to this on a podcast medium, delivery system, what have you, is sciencefictionandfantasyreadalong@gmail.com. Sorry that's long, tough. Those of you that have made it all the way to the end, we know that you are actually enjoying yourself. Well, I hope you are, because you wasted a lot of time. If not, nevertheless, follow, like, share, etc. Tell your friends. We're glad you're here. Thank you for listening.
Yeah, send us an email. If you like what we said, say so. If you don't like what we said, say so. If you disagree with what we said, say so. And that's the way we learn.
Yeah, I mean, obviously there's, we're humans. We make mistakes. Even Baruk made a mistake tonight. We're only human. So anyway, thanks for joining us. We'll see you in the next one. Take care.
Bye.
Bye.